Hey everyone, today we are talking with our good friend once again, Mr. Loren Avedon. Loren is a ninth degree black belt and Grandmaster in Taekwondo and Hopkido. This is part two of our discussion with Loren, and we hope you guys enjoy.
Have my absolute permission to do that.
Well,
As long as it's not to get me in trouble.
I mean, we'll take our shirts off to make it really uncomfortable. But
Bro, you're the pro at that one, dude.
I'm into it.
Log shots and the all kinds of stuff. That's
Yeah,
love that shit.
I kind of do it though for my own, because like obviously there's time to be serious with a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
but for me, you have to break up the monotony of like I never want to take myself so seriously that I become a caricature of what I preach.
Right.
And sometimes you see some of these people and you just kind of like, holy crap, like man, take a chill pill.
Yeah,
Like
lighten up.
right. And I'm just like, dude,
Yeah.
for me, it's like I just make a mockery of people that are
I
like
love
trying
it.
to be Instagram models and all that bullshit. But
I love it. I love it, man.
well,
Really
it's good to have you here today again, Loren. It's been
good to be had.
It's been I think a couple of months since we last kind of talked on camera, but
Yeah, brother.
you've also got married recently, so congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. We're enjoying ourselves, and it's great to be here in Europe, Eastern Europe, in a neutral country where you can kind of just do what you want to do, be what you want to be. It's
Have you been to Sweden yet when you're over there, or is it kind of?
No, I'm going to stop in Amsterdam on the way back. I've been invited, but it's a question of whether I will be able to get in. So now the World Health Organization supposedly has changed the rules about quarantine, about masks and social distancing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We'll see how that all pans out.
Yeah,
So,
that's one of those things where you gotta kind of have to. It's always changing, and obviously you're in the same boat in the industry where it's like literally every hour it kind of affects what you do and how you can do it. So
exactly, but not to be stopped. That's the key. There's a lot of people get stopped by these things because they feel like, they get into panic mode, quote unquote. I would say I'm human. I am subject to that possibility. I just let that be a thought, and then I let go of it, and then I start to methodically dissect or learn everything I possibly can. And as I mentioned to you, I think I've already been exposed to it. But I don't. Do I want to cough on somebody and get them sick? No, absolutely not. So, but here in Eastern Europe, they're being super careful, and in Europe overall, I mean, Sicily's a blue zone. We could try to travel there, but I can't get in because I have an American passport. It's just it's kind of crazy. But it's great to talk to you, buddy, and to everyone who's listening and has provided questions and been a part of your Spear chat. It's just the beginning. I mean, there's so much to go over, and there's so many things to learn. And I'm really, really grateful to you, John. Thank you.
One of the things you've actually been really active with, like a bunch of talks and podcasts, and I just watched one with Scott Atkins. And obviously, I'm a fan of Scott's and what he's doing too right now in the time of COVID. He's so creative in talking with masters like yourselves. That was just a really cool conversation. I'm glad to see you out there doing that stuff.
Thank you so much. And, it's such an honor to talk to Scott and to be complimented by such an incredibly gifted athlete and martial artist, and to have inspired him or helped in some way to inspire him on his journey. That's all one can ask for. I mean, we're going to talk about some of my lineage and some of where I come from in martial arts today and things like that. And all I can do is really be grateful and thankful that they shared with me, and that Scott would say that, and has no ego about, kind of keeping his bravado. He doesn't need to, because he's already a badass. I mean, if you've got Chad Stahelski, the guy, I know Chad very well. And, if you got Chad Stahelski telling you, the director of the John Wick series, Brandon Lee's former double, and Chad goes through methodically his martial arts history and upbringing, and into the Jun Fan, into the Jeet Kune Do with Dan and Santo and all of that. I mean, and you have Chad challenging Scott with questions. Name 5 moves, in the Matrix that are a combination together. Scott's kind of going, It's like, whoa, because that's how amazing Chad's mind is. He's like a sponge for all of these things because that's what he's devoted his life to. So, I mean, that martial spirit, but also the taking that into the next level of creating and making a story out of that fight or out of those techniques. And then,
Right.
the Matrix, what was Keanu's martial art? Hopkido, right?
See, I did not know that.
Yeah, that was that whole choreographed fight with I can't
Agent
remember
Smith?
with the gentleman in that sort of African American gentleman, right? Who he does this whole fight with. That's all
Morpheus. Yeah.
Morpheus. That's all Hopkido technique, and it's but Hopkido is a hybrid martial art. It comes from Daioto Ryu Jiu-Jitsu. Japanese Jiu-Jitsu is one of its mother principles, and it involves a lot of small circle Jiu-Jitsu. It's a hybrid of many different styles, and has had to adapt because of the Japanese occupation of Korea. And my Grandmaster is related to one of the founders of the Korea Hopkido Federation in 1963. 1963, my Grandmaster was 18. He was born right at the end of World War II, when Korea was starting to repopulate after the Japanese had been, ousted after VJ Day, and Korea could kind of take back its country because it had been an undefeated nation for millennia. I mean, Korea had a navy. Korea could kick anybody's butt. But when artillery started to happen in 1904, they tapped out and the Japanese occupied them. So, it's interesting how they were able to create Tang Sudo, which kept Taekyon and Taekwondo technique alive. And Hopkido, goes way back to Dr. Choi, and then Jihan Jae. Jihan Jae was one of the masters that I worked with. And he's in Bruce Lee's Game of Death. He's on the second level, I believe, the gold belted master, and that is Hopkido. Bruce was a big fan of Hopkido because of its joint locks. Like if you remember Jackie Chan and that one thing, Bruce takes his hand and gets him into this armbar, grabs his hair. That's something he took from Hopkido, from those joint locks, from all of those things that we learned. So, it's really a wonderful, wonderful style of an aggregate of what works, which is basically leveraging, dropping your center of gravity, movement, footwork, taking brute force and turning it against the opponent. It has some of Hopkido has Chinese roots, the mantis style. I've seen tiger style. I knew Grandmaster Choi, one of his descendants. These guys could run up walls. I kid you not. 4 or 5 steps, like before parkour was ever a thing. These guys barefoot would run, and they take 1, 2, 3, 4 steps up a wall, punch off, kick, flip, do whatever, and then land gracefully. I mean, wow. So it's I got a chance to get involved because of my Grandmaster's lineage and his association with that federation that was created in 1963 by I think it was Parkchung Hee. Yeah, Parkchung Hee. That's his exact name. That's my Grandmaster's, I think, uncle. And my Grandmaster's name is In Kon Park. Park. There's a lot of Parks, Kims, Chois, Rees, Chongs, in all of Korea and in Asia, right? It's kind of
Right.
like Smith, Jones, whatever. But they're all related. And to have, and the standard names in Korean are 3-part. And you say the last name first, Park, that's your family, and then who you are, as an individual given name. But I had a chance to train with all of these amazing dudes really way, way back in 2000, 2002, 3, 4, when I was still in the United States proper. I came over to visit, basically, and I didn't even let my daughter know that I was going to be in California because I literally slept at the dojang in Orange County. and trained for this test that I was going to be administered to me. And it was in January, and it was bloody cold for my little skinny Hawaiian behind in this dojan in Orange County in Fullerton. So, but I had been to these studios in Korea where, they train on concrete. They train in the basement. It's freaking 20 below zero outside, and these dudes are barefoot, and you're steaming, you're steaming. And, but they're training on concrete. Or you go to this place and you just bow in, you show up, and there's really no need of any language other than just the rote technique, which is let me show you. And people are always saying, why do you Hopido guys, do this wrist grab stuff? Well, the wrist grab is like learning A in the alphabet. Once you learn A, then you can learn B and C and so forth. So if someone grabs you here, or somebody grabs you by the throat, or somebody gets you by the hair, or whatever, because, Hopkido can involve anything, a belt, a rope, a knife, a gun, whatever, pick up anything, short staff, long staff. There's the Korean names for them, but we'll keep it short. I don't need to, go through all of the naming, but it involves weapons. But the principles of Hopkido are to remain on your feet and to disable your opponent or create such pain that your opponent submits. And you do that standing. If you have to get on the ground, now you're limited. Like, I have all respect for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the world. Absolutely amazing, the Machados and the Gracies. But if you notice, there's no small joint manipulation allowed in that art. If there was, then it would change entirely the entire philosophy of it. And combat Hapkido, and what I did in my 4-day test, I thought I failed. I flew back to Hawaii and with my basically, bloody, beat up, bruised, and, feeling like I suck. But then I found out a couple weeks later that I had passed. But that whole 4 days and then a month basically of living in that dojan beforehand was absolutely essential to me going through this sort of rite of passage or this test, and where they would just throw anything at me. Whether it's multiple opponents, whether it's a weapon, whether it's this or that, they're not going to tell you anything. They're just going to do it. And it would be 6 to 8 hours each day. I had a couple of different uniforms. By the time I was done, I didn't even want the uniforms anymore. They were so disgusting. There was no way to clean them. There was no way to do anything in them other than just leave them. So I literally threw them. This is very disrespectful, but threw them in the trash, in the dumpster, in the back when I went out, because I was so disgusted with myself, thinking that I had failed. But they had seen through all of, a 55-year-old man, going through this rite of passage, and then ultimately giving me that rank, which is an honorary thing. It's not something that you need, really. But my grandmaster was always, so, how can I say this? He was always giving me opportunities to show up, and I would just show up. Wherever it was in the world that he was going, he would say, "Would you like to go?" And I would go. And then, we would have the opportunity to train. And he was a military, he was from the military. He trained in Vietnam, special forces of many different countries that came over there. And, Korea was a little bit involved, but more of a neutral country during that conflict. And so the Korean War after that, and they were able to then kind of regain their footing again. My grandmaster moved back to Seoul, and he has brothers and cousins, and he's one of the founders, but one of the former masters of the cookie one, which is the Taekwondo aspect, and that's 1973. So 10 years later, when the war was kind of over in Vietnam and things could get kind of more back to normal in Asia, he was back there and a part of that formation of that organization. So that's how incredibly lucky I am to have been exposed to and given the opportunity to train with all of these masters whose names are a blur, but remembering how it felt, and what it was like to be put through the ordeal. So that's what was important to them, is they wanted to see my spirit, because I think I mentioned it, Hopkido. Hop means go. Ki is your key energy, your internal energy, and do is the way. So how go the way? And then you make it your own. They wanted to see how I would incorporate my own technique into all of these various techniques that they had shown me, and how I would stuff some of their, whether it's 1, 2, 3 opponents, how I would stuff their movements. And, sometimes I would have to submit. Sometimes I got the birdies flying around my head. But the fact is I was always getting up. I always got up and stood back there again. Should be stance ready to go. So,
it's kind of cool how, yes, you get the techniques, you learn the specifics of it, but it's up to you to make them a practical part of your tool belt. And that's what I think a lot of times it's like the security industry and some of the stuff we're doing, like the bodyguard executive protection. People are like, oh, I need the techniques. Well, no, you can take what you got from that and make it your own. And make it more practical for your job.
Right, and not only that, what works for your body type? What is your leverage? What is your physical, mental advantage? And then how can you develop that and polish that, or make it a part of, like, I know you're probably going to get back out on the road again pretty soon, I hope, John.
Yep.
And then everybody else, and what you're trying to do in creating a training atmosphere in this facility, that's the key. Is if we all come together and be a blood vessel. You've heard me use this, kind of term before, and then we can just flow with whatever's going on and learn. And like you like to keep things light, which is really cool, because a mind that's open and a mind that's relaxed is always going to be able to act quickly. Not that you're ever off. It's never off. Perhaps when you're asleep, you're always on, but you're relaxed and you're ready. So,
right.
It's a huge key.
If we could kind of back up a little bit, what was the catalyst that got you into like the martial arts and eventually Hopkido? And then that first day training at Hopkido, that goes all the way to what you just described, that final test. Did you think that on that first day that you were like, you could mentally and physically do this?
No, I thought I couldn't take it, and it bothered me. It really bothered me. It bothered me that I was so hard on myself, which I think is part of my makeup. I mean, my father was the same way. He just would set the bar so high he couldn't even reach it. And then I went in and I saw all these guys and how they moved, and then I just got lucky with Jun Chung and with Master Ree, Simon and Philip, and with all of these people that would come through there. And that was my foundation. And then Master Chung, he kind of set me free. And then I was like a Ronin. I just went around and around and around and around and would train and train and train and train. And thank God I had J.J. Perry's school to kind of base out of as far as Taekwondo. And then as far as Hopkido goes, I had many friends in other areas, and we would do, the grappling, do the technique, do the knife defense, do the staff techniques. I would still practice. I still have some rattan bows, for example. I mean, some of the questions were, some of the, hard weapons that you've worked with. Well, I think being able to grab a stick is a huge, thing, or just pick up anything and turn it into a weapon. A rope, take off your belt, or if you have the chance to do that, but just to be able to move and take the power away from somebody. So how it began was through Jun Chung, and through exposure to other masters, other styles, to Gumdo, which is the sword art, to the short staff, the long staff, the cane. And I think I mentioned to you that Master, or one of my interviews, that Master Philip Ree used to use me as his demo dummy. He would put on the Hogu and he'd whack me with the cane. I would punch at him, and he'd hook my arm and throw me and hit the deck. So that was prepped for, doing all this movie stuff, but it was also awesome be asked to be the person who helps the master to demonstrate the technique. And a cane is huge, man. I mean, all you need is, I mean, it's not your typical cane that you see today, or even a hooked cane. It's a little bit longer, and it's bamboo. It has a little bit more of a, I don't know how to put this, a semicircle, a curve there. But either way, and the tip is not quite pointed, but it comes to a sort of, not a head, but it's blunt, because you would have to use it if you're walking or whatever to justify walking with it. But it's an amazing. It's just a straight tool, just like a stick. It's the same kind of thing. So it was just. I'm sorry to go on and on, but it's very difficult to describe the progression of just what happened. Like, it's a blur. I just kind of showed up, and then all of these things I absorbed, I then made my own, and that's what that test involved. Because I was in Hawaii, training with all kinds of different people. I did all kinds of training in the South Bay with Muay Thai and with Wing Chun, and when I had my own schools, I was doing Wing Chun as well, and with Eskrima, Kali, and Arnis. And after sticks are coming at your head, those rattan sticks are coming at you, and you've got to block them and parry and do heaven and earth or whatever. Punches are slow. Hands are slow. It's trippy how weapons are just an extension of yourself. But the basic foundations of Hopkido are throughout all martial arts. It's all about your center, your weight, the distribution of your energy, and how you receive an opponent's attack. But there are aggressive movements and a lot of painful technique in Hopkido. Not all of it works. Not all of it will work. It's all about the timing. And again, combat Hopkido, how does that come into play? Well, you learn very sensitive areas of the body. And I don't care how big you are or how strong you are. There's a lot of people that have that, you can hit them 100 times and they're still going to be there.
Oh,
or if they're on something, right? It's beyond. But if you take them down and then you can move on, for example, now you're not trying to, do what maybe you want to do, which is strike them. You just let the ground do the work, and you move on.
Well, if there's multiple attackers, you don't have time to wrap up with someone. And that's kind of why I like when you talked about the wrist lock, that control the situation and move on if you have to. And so
absolutely,
I love that. It's so practical.
And line up those three. Don't have them around you. It's the old joke about pick the biggest guy and not punch him in the nose. But the other thing is that you try to not allow that kind of situation to occur. That's why you have your back up against the wall all the time. You have all of this training that doesn't allow that. Right. But then again, when you're dealing with someone that you're working with, you just have to be fluid. You just have to be liquid, and then you're going to wrap this person up and protect them, and that's all you can do.
Chris and I have been talking a lot about Hopkido, and it's he's actually really interested in the art itself, and so for someone that's never done it before, I'm like, hey, Loren, where should I go train if I want to just pick it up? Like, what's the first couple of weeks like? And then from there, what is the time period or between like different belts and stuff like that?
Well, here's the thing about Hopkido. If you go to a good Hopkido dojan, the first months are going to be how to learn to stand, how to learn to certain flexibility movements, how to roll, how to fall, how to move in a stance or in certain ways, and condition your body. You're gonna wear yourself out. You're gonna do various striking techniques. You're gonna yell. You want to find a good Hopkido school. It's very, very difficult without going and being allowed to watch. And you watch the senior students. You watch the beginning classes, and then hopefully there's some trial period. But look, if you, it's like judo. If you're not ready to hit the ground a lot and know and make friends with the ground and be thrown around and be hurt, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, in this day and age, they sell belts. You can go sign up at a school and, if you have paid your money, you're going to get that belt. I don't want that. One of the greatest Hopkido grandmasters and teachers, he wears a white belt, and he just puts a little inscription on there of his name and of the Korean Hopkido Federation on the other side of the belt. And so he's very, very humble. And that's the thing. You would have to go and find that grandmaster or that master. And there are some Westerners that do that and might be in your area. The question is, what are they doing right now? Everybody has stopped training with others because of this 3 or 4 months of, just legally, physically not being able to do it. So it's actually an opportunity once these schools start to reopen or rebound. I couldn't tell you, you'd have to give me your specific area, but you're going to be bouncing around all over the place.
Right.
So your theory or idea of creating a training center and then allowing it to run itself and allowing it to be there is a great opportunity for, shall we say, it's like Olympic Training Center. People show up. Yeah, somebody's got to pay the bills, so there's got to be some kind of classes or whatever you're going to do.
Right.
To find someone near you, you have to go there. You have to see that energy. You have to see how the senior students are acting, how people are interacting, what their level is. You can kind of see by the lines and the flexibility or the ease of movement or what they emphasize, how hard they train, or whether they're talking a lot or they're doing a lot, because that's the thing. You've got a lot of people out there that have a belt. You can buy one online. It's, and have it engraved.
One of the things I really like, and again, I don't have a belt. I don't have any specific training in any martial art. I mean, the Secret Service was very Krav Maga, Jiu-Jitsu, but again, it's very the practical stuff aspect of it.
Sure,
so for me, some of the thing that draws me to the martial arts is the fact that if you want to get trained by someone who's really good, you go to them. And for me, there's that part of it's like, man, this is like an old school, like David Carradine Kung Fu. Like everyone, you got to flock to him if you want to learn the best. And I think I have extreme admiration for anyone that is a grandmaster or a teacher in any of these arts to actually have that knowledge where people come to you to learn and want to appreciate what all the studies you've done.
Yeah, and that's difficult to find, again, because right now everyone is dispersed. In the Korean sort of paradigm, they go back to Korea. Honestly, a lot of them. They just go back to Seoul. They go back home, or they have their little circle there, and they're probably training in the garage, and you just don't know it. The neighbors may know it because of the noises that are happening there. And but that's the thing right now. I couldn't even tell you where to go in your area.
Right.
But having a foundation of a defensive style of police tactical technique, for example, or a Secret Service based mind, you have that ability to absorb these things. You don't have to be excellent at everything, but what you have to be able to do is have that mindset that you have created, which is the awareness,
right?
And knowing what's going on and feeling what's going on, which is wonderful. What's wonderful about martial arts. I think I mentioned to you that I went to an Aikido dojo, in downtown LA. It was off some old railroad track, and the Grandmaster or what was it, Hanshi, or anyway, the head sensei there has passed away. He was a collector of swords and of this and of that. But I stepped up onto this platform, which used to be basically a loading dock or something, where the train would go, and pick stuff up in downtown LA. And I bowed in, and there were these Aikido masters, and they were practicing. Now, Aikido is a defensive art. You see these guys running at these guys and grabbing them or whatever. That's great. But I tell you, and I swear to you, that I could feel these men. When I took this man's hand and shook his hand and bowed, I felt him. And that's something that I can't explain. But I knew that 2 feet around him was his area. And if you come into that area, you're going to end up on the floor. And so you just feel that. And what does that do? That dissuades any kind of presence. Now, you do have that mindset of somebody who is just not there, not feeling anything. They're just, they have some singular crazy shit idea, like drop kicking Arnold Schwarzenegger from behind, running across a basketball court while he's talking to some kids.
And he had 3 security guards with him.
And he had 3 security guards with him. And they didn't see that, nor could they stop that. Had one of them seen it, I guarantee you he would have run in front of that young man and at least tried to deflect that technique. And then the other 2 would have been on him. But, obviously that kid is somewhere, doing some sort of, I don't know. I have no idea. I didn't follow up with that. But, anybody's vulnerable anytime, as you know. It's just a matter of trying to decrease that. And your desire to learn martial arts or to find out what's going to work for you. That's awesome.
Part of the reason why we've wanted to do this kind of online martial arts symposium thing is that there's so much out there. And like you said, I don't have the time to learn. I mean, eventually I think I want to pick one and just be like, hey, I'm going to do my best at it. I'm going to go for belts. I'm going to put the time in. But there's so much you can pull from different aspects of the martial arts to kind of make me better at what I do. I mean, we've done Keith Cook, Kathy Long, Olivia Grunner, and every one of them has an aspect where I'm like, I might not like that part of their background or training, but one part that I do like, that's already made me a better person just learning about it. And so I do find value in just learning from everyone's different mindset. Because when it comes down to it, everyone we're talking to, they've all said the same thing. You're all very knowledgeable in history. You all have the notion and you all have the beliefs that, hey, what we do is great, but at the end of the day, it's got to be a practical use of it. And that right there just opened my eyes.
Well, you have that ability yourself to understand that always it's every day is a new day, right? So we're all interested in learning. I'm interested in learning from some of the experts that you work with, for example. I just want to be in the presence of warriors and of men and women who are disciplined and who are up to something that is going to benefit, not just themselves, but is going to help others and is going to be a part of something bigger than themselves. That's always.
It's weird that people don't put the time in to want to learn. It's kind of disheartening because it's especially during this last 3-4 months, learn a language, learn how to write a different language, take a cooking class. There's some states now they're issuing online guard card, EMT, tactical training online. It's put the time in, and it's just weird that it's just crazy.
I think it's our instant gratification society. We've forgotten that there are books out there, and there are things out there that are core to our human being that we can do. I mean, my daughter, bless her heart, she's now picked up web design. She's had that guitar sitting in her room for 12 years, but now she can play a few chords. She bought an ukulele and she learned how to play that. She's, so she's tasked herself with that artistic, kind of self that she loves. She misses going to live shows. If you're ever in LA and you can hook
she'll come out. Yeah, she'll.
I would love you to do that because she is just an absolute fan of all of these artists. But in any case, so she's taken this opportunity to learn, to play, to develop something. Now, look, I'm not saying it's easy for a lot of people out there who are struggling with how do I pay my bills and what am I going to do. I mean, there's a lot of, there's a lot of that going on. But yes, there's in any kind of adversity, there's always an opportunity.
Right.
So that's the challenge that we're all faced. But what are you going to do today, with your time, and what are you going to do for others, and on all of those things. Now, look, I understand people are busy, man. They have more than a 9 to 5. They have a 5 to 9, and then they have to get up and do it all over again. They have businesses to run or try to keep going at this time.
Their kids that aren't in school, they have to take care of them now. Totally, I get it.
Yeah, and they're so grateful to the teachers now for, thank you for taking my child for 8 hours a day. I never appreciated it before. You know, it's so it's interesting, but this is sort of interesting also in that society always seems to make the circle, where everything is okay until it's not, and we're going to be told what to do, right? Unfortunately, and that's also just again a part of being in the society. So, we have to kind of roll with the punches. And you're out there with Chop Fit, and you're doing stuff. You're creating, Spirit Talk. You're on with Chris. He's doing his thing. He's riding the horses. He's, out, running and gunning in the forest or wherever he is out there. And that's awesome, and that's what I've done. I've decided to, come over here and go through the arduous process of marrying a foreigner and trying to get her over to the United States. I mean, that's a full-time job. Right. But while I'm over here, I'm contacting. I'm going to any athletic events I can, contacting this master from Niche, and seeing what's going on with him, supporting all of my students or whoever wants to talk to me in whatever they want to talk about, because I have that luxury and I have that desire to be a part of the conversation. And getting to talk to you, getting to talk to Scott Atkins or Bruce Willow or whoever is, got the time now.
Right. That Bruce Willow one was good too. That was really good.
I think that's one of the best ones ever, because he actually found that old Pepsi Slice commercial.
Yeah, I was like, there's no way that's Loren. I'm like, oh my God.
I'm the guy doing the chop and the spinning chop. You can't even really see me. I did that flying sidekick through this man-made, flat waterfall for 3 days. But the stunt coordinator, Daniel something or other, he ended up being the guy that got it shot going through. Because I mean, for 3 days, I was on a platform, 4 inches of water or whatever, running, jumping through the thing and smiling, and then they hooked some hoses to my arms, and I'm doing the chop and spin chop, and you don't even see me, but that's me. But then I was a Pepsi Slice black belt. I got my SAG card, but he did a great job. So everybody has these opportunities now to reach out. And some people are real busy, and some people are trying to gear back up to go back to work. And that's what I'm excited about is all of these people now, they're like, oh yeah, Loren Avedon guy, he's still alive. We didn't know that before.
Right. He looked younger. Right.
Anyway, but it's always good to talk to you, John, because, you've got this great, energy about you, and you always are willing want to learn. I wish I could point you in the direction of where to go, but I think what's going to occur perhaps is you're going to get back out on the road, and hopefully somebody that you recruit, has some of that knowledge and background, and you can certainly, discover some technique that's going to be effective for what you need to do.
I'll just go to you. How about that?
That's perfect.
My office is right by you, so.
That's terrific. So I look forward to that, and I'll be back. I'm going to go through Amsterdam. I came through Amsterdam to get here because I didn't want to deal with the Charles de Gaulle, the French paperwork where you have to fill out, everything in French about your COVID, whatever.
Right.
So I went through Schiphol Airport, and when I go back, I'll probably stay over there for a few days. I'll probably stop in New York, maybe go to Arlington, go see I think Arlington is still closed though, so I may not be able to do that.
You posted an awesome tribute. Which family member was it?
My father.
Right. Well, but you had the dust for your wedding day. You posted a
Yes.
picture of the dust from Arlington,
Yes.
and I thought that was a really awesome tribute. It was kind of cool, kind of full circle for you too, that he's actually there with you.
Yeah, he is. And that bracelet was one that his widow gave me, my stepmother, and that's something that I treasure. And so that was something that I wore. Of course, but I didn't realize it. I'm not the type in Florida who wears dress shoes all the time. You know what I
Right.
mean? I'm sneaks or flip flops or
Crocs.
slippers, as they would call.
Right.
Yeah, maybe Crocs. That's my neighbor. But I like being if I could walk barefoot, I would. But the thing about it is that I realized that I was like polishing them up, and I turned them over. I'm like, this is Arlington right here on the bottom of these shoes, and I realized that. So I wanted to memorialize that because of my father's influence on I wouldn't be here.
Right.
So that's just something really cool. Thank you for appreciating that.
No, that was great. I forgot to talk to you or mention that to you when I first saw it, but yeah, that's really cool. That was awesome.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. And,
So you mentioned earlier that you got these gyms or schools that will offer, hey, pay X amount of dollars to get your belt, but then you also mentioned that a lot of these dojos and masters are going back to their home countries.
Yeah.
What was the turning point that kind of changed like the atmosphere, like in your heyday, the 80s, 90s, like not your heyday, but like these gyms being open and everyone proud to be a martial artist and the ego and the shirtless and oiled up at Venice Beach. Like at what point did that kind of change to the thing where it's like, I'll just pay to get it. I don't want to put the time in.
Well, the thing about it is it's a business. These schools, become a business. And in the 70s, 80s, the 60s, when you went to a karate school, you went there to learn how to fight. You went there to learn how to, with no equipment or anything like that, maybe a groin cup, to throw down. And I don't know how it changed, but it became more of a business philosophy and less of an arduous, disciplinary system. Now, I think Jun Chung, for example, an old school master, he still has that criteria. So if you can find somebody who has that kind of, I think it's going on almost 50 years now.
Which is awesome.
Which is amazing. And people say, oh, Jun Chung is a Hollywood master. I mean, well, no, he's not. He's a guy who, was working with Chuck Norris and was around, and, Philip Rhee and Simon Rhee, they're still doing their thing. Philip doesn't have a school, but Simon probably still has his schools out in the Valley. And so for me, when I had my schools, I had testing every 3 months, but most of the students couldn't afford to test, for example. Couldn't afford the $40. And so I would say, don't worry. Come here and wash the windows, sweep the mat, or do something in the school. And then I will, and learn. Keep coming. So I had that ability. The school didn't last, but that was a school in the city of Orange. The school I had in Reseda, the Northridge earthquake happened.
Oh.
And it was destroyed. So, that was that. So then I transitioned into going to JJ and going here and going there, but I would always travel around. And then in the late 90s, I met Grandmaster Park. I met him at a testing that I was invited to be a judge. And here is this, Grandmaster next to me, and I don't know him. He doesn't know me. He still doesn't speak English. I still need a translation program to get a message across to him, or one of the other masters or grandmasters is there to interact. But immediately he and I bonded, and he offered again through translation through other masters and grandmasters to get me involved in all of these things in North America, Central America, Mexico, South America, because he was in charge of the competition division of the Kukkiwon and the World Taekwondo Federation at the time. So here are all of these high-ranking mucky mucks that now I'm exposed to and who I can now learn from. I have the opportunity, with his permission, to go and train with these people, and then to work with the demo team, to go here, to go there, to fly to Quito, to go to the Pan Ams, to go here and there as an official, as a representative of the Korea Sports Association in America, to do all of these things. They don't give you money for that.
Right.
They just say, come and we'll pay for your flight if we can, and give you a place to stay and something to eat. And then, you're there. So that was my reward. Now, how people keep their business, how expensive commercial products.
Well, and I totally get, you have to survive. You have to, and I think that a lot of these people that end up turning, that you have to adapt. You adapt or die, basically. And I support, and I totally think that you have to do what, but I also don't want these people that are really good at what they do to feel like they're dying on the outside, or even at the inside, where it's like, I can't, what I want to do, I can't do because it doesn't pay the bills. And so I was born in 85, but I remember in like 90s or so, I would see like these black belt magazine with like the cool, like it could be Jeff Speakman, it could be Richard Norton, whoever it was. I was like, I don't get the martial art, but I'd buy the magazine just to read like these little biographies and look at the pictures. And so you go through the supermarket now. I think black belt's still around.
Yes,
they are.
Yes.
They actually start following us this week with everything we're doing, which is badass.
That's awesome.
But I wish, remember there was like a karate magazine. There was Inside Kung Fu. Part of me, I wish that stuff could come back. And like, I think part of the thing why we're doing this kind of block of martial arts is that maybe there's a way to kind of get that going again. I mean, obviously times change, but there is, you see some of these people are like, man, these guys are badasses, or girls. And I wish they still got the respect at the level outside what they do.
Yeah, it's true. And, John Corcoran, unfortunately, a few years ago passed away. John was one of the managing editors of several of those publications. And like I have just for fun, this is long ago on Inside Karate.
Damn.
Right? But what's cool is that, and I don't have this picture, but here I am at a tournament kicking some guy in the head. And I'm doing my little jump front kick there,
right,
with Rick Aschenbrenner, who's a very dear friend and literally a rocket scientist. So but that was those kicking days, or that shoot was in '94 when I was with JJ Perry, who's now this Uber guy. He Atkins also he's worked with JJ several times. And,
yeah, he's badass.
Yeah, he is a badass, and that's my buddy. And this is JJ's ass in the air.
Damn.
As we are doing our thing, and then there's some little technique in here that was part of the day, even in the 90s, that you show some sort of self-defense technique.
Yeah, see, I love that stuff.
And mine was, against the bolo punch, and how to grab it and pull that swing into you and whack them with the elbow, then hook them, get them in the guillotine, and then literally just lift your leg up and crack his head on the ground. That was my thing with JJ, and he showed up for that. What a super guy. And this is an amazing martial artist, and still is. He's 53. Right. He's 53, but now he's had to transition because of all the injuries.
Right.
Yeah. So it's all good. I don't know how to bring that back, but we can start.
Yeah, like I don't know if there's a coalition because you hear of like Dragon Fest, I believe. Obviously, COVID affected this year, but there are different. But part of me is just like, there's got to be a way where everyone can kind of band together, and because I don't know anything about martial arts outside the basics. But why do I care this much? There's got to be more people, right? And so,
Absolutely.
like, it'd be kind of cool. And your social media, and I know a lot of people from your era, like the social media thing. Obviously, I was kind of born into the Facebooks, all this other crap. It's a necessary evil, but
Sure.
you are also very active on there, telling your story, sharing awesome stuff. So I think that is a good start too, just to kind of get that you guys all have a story to share. And I think the more people that listen to it, I think it'd be better off for everyone.
Absolutely. And the thing about it is allowing, it's like 8711 Action Design in Westchester. I mean, people are invited and they show up. And you've got some of the best in the world, and that's Chad Stahelski and David Leach's gym. And but it's really it's their brainchild and it's not actually an original thing to have a stunt symposium.
Right.
Have the mini tramp, have the gymnastics floor, have the bags, have the bars, have the trusses set up, have a very high ceiling and pick points on there where you can do various. It's nothing new, but the fact is that they invested in that. And that's the thing that you can do is find hopefully some angel investor, someone who wants to create sort of a, if who was that chap from Virgin?
Branson?
Yeah.
Richard Branson.
So he and also the guy who does the hair products has these karate thing, but they're all promotional, and what I think you would rather have is something like the Pit, which is where Chuck, Liddell and these guys would show up and train in the dirt and do this whole kind of thing, where it doesn't really matter. It's like Gene LaBelle probably still has his place way in Frazier Park in California. Right. So there are some great martial artists out there. So if you give them the address and say, hey, come on and show up, and you can do some training. The thing about
it, like an open mic night, but for people like yourselves that come and train, and you're also wanting to learn too. And I think and you know what? Part of me is like, see these guys throw each other around. Oh, can you throw me around? Cool. But at the end of the day, the knowledge you get from that, hearing them talk and how they present themselves, that in itself is well worth the price of admission, just to hear these people and see their battle scars.
Right, and it's valuable. Speaking of battle scars, I mean, I broke my wrist for the 5th time in that 9th degree test. So I'll be showing you things with my left hand, because most of my right hand skills of, this ligaments torn permanently, and it's, I'm not going to let them fuse my hand to my arm.
Right.
That's what they can do. But, the fact is that I can still, teach. I can still make whoever understand. And then again, I want to learn and have that symposium and have that circle of, whether it's Dan Severin or whoever else is showing up. Richard Norton is a tremendous grappler, and tremendous talent. All of these people are tremendously talented. Kathy Long, Don Wilson. Wow. I mean, Kathy is incredibly gifted. But again, I think your whole idea of having a center where people can learn various skills and also get, certified things that you can do, which is very, very easy. That's how I got my CCWP. Is I went to a gun show and it was just a bunch of cops giving this talk and then taking me through the test. And then we had to study and go put one round down range. It was ridiculous. So, it's kind of scary, in some aspect about who you let in and who you're going to teach. But on the other hand, if you can, create that atmosphere, that creates the possibility.
Well, it all goes back to what you said earlier, the practicality of you're not here you might, after the seminar or training, you might want to study that martial art more and do what you have to do with that person. But I'm looking more for the taking the practicality out of what you can learn and how you can use it to benefit yourself in a real world situation. And there's great value in that.
Amen. And if you look at just to kind of tout my roots, if you look at some of the greatest champions in the world, they started with Taekwondo, and
Right.
that's Anderson and Spider Silva, for example. That's B.J. Penn. That's the list goes on and on and on. Anthony Pettis, in the MMA world. But again, what you would want to learn are these joint locks or these various things where you can escape and or subdue or contain someone who might wish to do harm. You're already looking and scanning for somebody who's going to do something,
right?
And you're affected. I think that would be great, and then I really look forward to it, to draw then those people in and vet them in that kind of atmosphere, environment, and be able to support it with, say, classes that will give some people a certification in something, like a CCP, like a security guard training course, that kind of thing. So that pays the bills, but then you have this little place where people can come and play, and yes, perhaps pay a fee if they need to use the gym facilities, and then they can take classes, and then you do need to look. What I'm trying to say is you do need a root art. You need to choose something that you want to dedicate yourself to, and hopefully, find the right person who has that attitude and that lineage and that expectation of you doing the best you can in order for you to test. And the only way to do that is you go and you see the senior students, the junior students, how the masters, how these are over a period of time. You just show up and you just watch. Right. And then, you go, you see if this is someone that you want to. And then certainly if you give me some names, I can do some background on them. But the fact of the matter is that so can you. It's just where you feel comfortable, and then where you can come and go as well and be a part of the group. But you got to pick one. You got to have something that you feel is going to be a good base for you. And I think that Hopido would be a great a way to begin the journey. But that's got to be something that you find in your area. And again, we can talk candidly off screen about who might be around. But the fact is what's wonderful is to be a part of your circle and Silver Spear and what they're up to, and whatever you guys get into, I'm going to be around. And
I love it,
and I love it too. So. Look, just to be practical and to answer some of the questions that were given from the last talk, I'm going to put on my old man glasses. And somebody asked about what are some of the most difficult weapons, right, that you've trained with. And I can say that I've trained with a lot of weapons. And I don't care if it's a firearm or what, but, like most difficult weapons would be a medieval broadsword, for example. How do you swing that and not hurt somebody and make something work? Working with a machine gun, or even just an AK-47, that has a fold-out stock. Like, how do you wrap that strap? How do you carry that? How do you do a 3-round burst effectively? The AK-47 is scream, and then as far as sticks, the Scream Kali Arnis, and those rattan sticks, the short and long bow. All of these are weapons, but they're extensions of yourself, and they require practice, footwork, and constant, use. And then the Gumdo sword, that's the Korean version of Kendo. And, look, I've had shovels swung at my head, real shovels, in these movies. And, my mother bought me a Toledo steel sword from Toledo, Spain when I was a boy. And I was out there, watching some old movies and trying to see if I could throw that thing around, and I could. It was just too dang heavy. So, but, everything from the machete to the karambit, the double-edged blade that the Filipinos use. That's something, man. I tell you what, the Filipinos, they defeated the conquistadors. Why? they were wearing a little loincloth, and they had their little rattan sticks, and all these conquistadors had was little chainmail over their groin. And so they're swinging these huge swords, wearing these breastplates and the steel hats in 95, 99-degree weather, and little Filipinos come there and go, and just eviscerate them. And then pick up the sword. Now they have a sword, now they can make a knife. They're going to make something smaller that they can carry around. It's just a trip how, there's so many different styles and ways. And if you had a Filipino martial art or a silat martial art, an Indonesian martial arts style, that's something that I would encourage you to investigate too, because it's very practical, very, very street oriented and practical, and involves, what's effective, what's going to work to disable or to contain. So, that was answer to that question. And then the Aikido and Hopkido difference is Aikido is not aggressive. It's a defensive art. And Hopkido, as I described, is a hybrid of many different things. So, it's what works for you. And then I developed my own style of Hopkido for what works, how I can utilize what my, articulation is, not, word-wise, but physically, what works for me. And but you can find that. So look for a silat master and somebody who is into that Indonesian style, Filipino style, and also the Hopkido. The Filipino style is going to teach you a lot of the weapons very early, for example. But as you know, gun fu or a disarm or even knife defense is maybe 5% effective. You just got to know that. But having a base would be super. And then
just learn to respect the actual weapons and tools themselves probably makes you you understand it better.
Right. And then, having that freaking stab vest on is going to help you.
Yeah, that would help. I do have one last question for you, though. It's kind of a conglomerate of maybe a couple smaller ones, but you've obviously worked with Matthias Hughes, Keith Cook, Billy Blank, Cynthia Rothrock, Keith Vitale. When you guys all get together for a movie, is there ever a time when you guys are kind of like, and obviously you all know what you're doing, no matter what your background is, and are you always blessed to have a fight choreographer or a director that films or sets up a scene that is actually like lifelike? Or is you sometimes you kind of step back and like, hey, this isn't practical. Sure, it's Hollywood, but is there a way to film it? Are you able to have that kind of control where you're like, hey, we got these experts here. Let's film this the way it should be?
Well, that's always, the thing that you got to kind of CYA. There's a lot of times that, you may or may not have somebody who has understanding of camera. And that's just the situation, but you're able to tell that instinctively. The people that you mentioned, and we talked about Ryan Hunter before, and doing that end fight with Keith in Blood Brothers. Look, having the Chinese around for these first initial films, and those stunt choreographers and those levels of athletes and stunt performers, it just made all of us better. And they know camera. And sometimes there would be issues with distancing, because you got two guys that are 5'2" putting together a series of moves and choreography, but then 2 6-foot guys have to do it. And so it's not going to work in the same space. So you might have to move the camera back, but they're going to figure out the way to do it. And when you're working with other professionals, it's always, it's a stacking game. You want to give them room. You want to allow them to do what needs to be done. And you're all working together as a team, and you're all going to make it work the best you can. All I can tell you is, and you heard this in many of the interviews with Scott and whatever, is that, with the Chinese, they're going to keep doing it. They're going to make you do it over and over and over again until you get it right. And then once you have that experience, now when you're working on another film, you're going to maybe ask, for another take, or how did that look, or that kind of thing. Look, I haven't been in the environment of the 3D camera, of the green screen. My stuff is way before all this face replacements and look, I worked as a stuntman. I did a lot of practical ground pounding. But the fact is that, you know, it's always instinct. It's just like you kind of know, because you've put your soul and your heart and your mind into it. So you know what's going to work and what's not. And sometimes you just have to trust. You know, you're always covering, you know, CYA, covering your path. But you just got to kind of trust in what's going on and what's being done. And sometimes, you know, my daughter will tell you, I don't like to watch myself, you know, because I always think I could have done it better. And that's just my personality. It's like, you know, I described to you after this test, you know, me just leaving my bloody uniforms there. I felt so upset at myself that I could have done better, but I did great. You know, I just needed that affirmation, I guess, or I'm going to be hard. I think we talked about this before as well. I'm hard on myself, so others don't have to be, or so others can be, and I don't get offended or affected by it, because I understand that they're trying their best. All right, that's the way I choose to look at it. And so, with any of these people or these experts or these wonderful people, when you're working together, you just allow them to do your thing, and you just try to be in the right spot at the right time so that it works for camera, and so that everybody is safe, everybody goes home, is okay, and yes, you may have some boo-boos, but you know what? That's what you signed up for. So, you know, that's what it is. That's what it's all about.
I know you and I have talked about the Kickboxers, and I recently just talked to Keith about it, but the stories that are coming from a movie like that, where it's yourself, Keith, and Billy, it's just awesome, because like the fights are real, and it's just kind of cool that you guys are able to kind of, hey, these are our backgrounds. This is what we're going to film. Let's make this as real as we can. So it's just awesome.
It is awesome, and it was a blessing to be with the both of them. And as you know, Keith Cook, I mean, he looks like he's the same guy there. You know, he's even more ripped now.
It's hard to believe he's only 30 years old. He said, so it's hard to believe.
Eternally 29.
Right.
30th time. Yes, I just turned the big 5'8", so I guess I'm 28 for the 30th time. But, you know, it's all good, buddy, and it's always a pleasure, John. And I wish you all the best with whatever is going to occur in the next month or so, because I think things are going to start to unwind. And whatever goes on, we will be in touch always.
Before you go,
yes, sir.
What is this warrior clothing, this thing your daughter started?
Yeah.
Yeah, what is kind of like why you started it, and kind of what the gist of it is?
Well, there's a little mission statement there that describes what occurred between the two of us and about a very dear friend of mine, and I'm going to get choked up if I really get into it. But you can read at warriorwear.clothing what she saw in me and what I've always driven into her, which is, how are you going to make a difference for others who can't fight for themselves? And, you know, you've taken on, for example, yourself, John, the child trafficking and things like, you know, my friend Vincent Lin, for example, is getting involved in that whole world of getting rid of trafficking and of slavery and of all of these things. So, you know, the fact of the matter is that it's just, you know, we live in a world that's kind of scary. So what we got to do is we just got to stick together and keep letting people know that it's all going to be all right. And we just have to learn from this and not let it take away our spirit or our understanding of our purpose or what's important. Rather, emphasize what is important and what we're here to do. And what you're here to do is the same thing that I feel I'm here to do, and that's learn and make things better for others and for the next generation, and for, you know, those that came before us, to respect them and to give them the care and the honor that they deserve. Like my father's, you know, the dirt on my shoe. And because that's all I am is dirt. I am going to go back to the dirt. And what I do in between hopefully will make a difference in someone's experience, you know. And so that's why I'm grateful to be with you, brother. And I wish you and everyone out there all the best. And, you know, just just keep a positive PMA, positive mental attitude, and keep going. And everything's
Awesome.
going to work out. Everything's going to
Awesome.
work.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
brother.
you, Loren, for
Thank you.
today, and thank you for your wisdom, your stories, and
Always
we'll
a
be
pleasure.
talking soon.
Absolutely, John. Thank you,
Awesome.
brother.
Thank you. Bye.
God bless you.